facility off the Baxter exit off I-275. And then that houses both the transfer station and the household hazardous waste facility. We manage all the garbage and recycling collection from downtown Knoxville. We have a very small, about 300 businesses who utilize our commercial program. So these are like nonprofits, churches, small offices that don't produce much trash. So they pay us a small fee for this service. We also manage the contract with Waste Connections, who collects all the garbage for 59,000 households in the city. And then the recycling for about a little over half those residents. We also partner with Goodwill to manage our 5 recycling drop-off centers. And then we have a low waste restaurant certification program called Conserve Knoxville that I will go into further. So the solid waste management facility, the one aspect of this facility is the transfer station. So this is a place where all businesses and residences within Knox County can come and bring us their trash. So there's a small fee to dispose of this waste. It's $3 per 100 pounds. This is a really great facility if you're cleaning out a home, you're doing some remodeling. It can be really costly to go to the landfill itself, and they're not the cleanest places. So our transfer station will transfer the waste to the landfill for you. Last year, we transferred about 40,000 tons and resulted in $1.8 million in revenue. It is a great facility. The 2 landfills that we utilize and transport our waste to from that facility, and just our waste from curbside as well, is Poplar View landfill. So that is here in Knox County. That's where all our demolition and construction material goes to. And then the other one is Meadow Branch landfill, and it's in Athens. And that takes kind of like the garbagey garbage, like the wet household gross trash goes to that landfill. The other aspect of the solid waste facility is the household hazardous waste facility. I think this is a wonderful, very underutilized facility. First off, it's free. It's for all city and Knox County residents to come and dispose of those things that aren't really meant for a landfill. And I'll show you a list of kind of those materials that we accept there. Like I said, it's free, and that we do have a reuse shelf. So if someone comes in, they have a bottle of something that's not even been opened, or maybe it's halfway full, our staff will, they'll inspect it and they'll see that it's in good condition. They'll set it aside on our reuse shelf, and people in the public can come and take a look at that shelf and remove anything for their own use for free. Here's a list of those accepted materials at that facility. The ones that are highlighted in red are the ones that you might not have realized are items that you don't want to put in the trash. I also want to point out that we take electronic waste here for free. So this is more like your like tech waste, things like computer systems, old cell phones, old chargers and cords and things like that. Not like your microwave or blender or anything like that. So it's kind of like those tech e-waste materials. Flea collars, things like that, we take for free at this facility. And then, as I mentioned, Conserve Knoxville Low Waste Restaurant Certification Program. This is a program that we try to launch right before COVID hit, and it's kind of been on a hiatus during this last year. We're hoping as things get back to normal, we'll be able to really launch that and make it a really good program. There's certain requirements that restaurants have to meet to become certified. There's 2 different levels. And then it's led by our AmeriCorps members. And it just points out the restaurants who are doing their part to try to reduce their waste, and kind of just showcase them and celebrate them for the good things that they're doing. We do have one restaurant that's certified. It's Good Golly Tamale. They are doing awesome things there. They're in the Old City. I suggest checking them out. Okay, state of recycling. So a little bit of history. This is a snapshot timeline. I'll point out in the 80s is when recycling started in Knoxville, our drop-off centers. We did not have curbside recycling until 2011. And this was a pilot program, so it wasn't until 2017 when we actually got funding for this program to be able to purchase carts and really keep on a rotating basis each year enough money to purchase carts and pay Waste Connections to collect recycling from new recyclers. And then I know you've all heard a lot probably about China and China not taking our recycling and all that. I will go into this a little bit more, but just know that Knoxville's recycling has never gone to China. It does not make sense for our recycling to go to China as we are landlocked, and it would cost a lot of money for us to get our stuff on a ship. So really, China's national sword is what they call it, has more so affected like the coastal areas, California, Florida, places like that, where it makes economic sense for them to ship their materials to China. So in 2013, China actually did set up rules about the amount of contamination that could be in their recycling. Contamination is defined by items that are in the recycling that are not recyclable. But they didn't enforce those rules until 2018. And they were like, we're not taking your trash anymore. And they put on a very firm, no more than 0.5% contamination rate for the materials that they were taking in. To put that into perspective, our national average contamination rate is 25%. So 0.5% is basically impossible for a lot of our recycling facilities to achieve because the technology is not there to get it that clean. And also there's a lot of people who are just mindlessly putting things in the recycling that aren't recyclable. So just a little bit on that. And I will say, recycling only works if it's driven by the market. So recycling only works if there's someone there who is buying our materials. So if no one's willing to buy it and turn it into something new, then we can't recycle stuff. So what is accepted and not accepted is completely determined by the market. So with recycling, is the sky falling? Is recycling going to end sometime? No, not here, not yet, but the commodity prices, so what our materials are worth, they're worth less and less. So in order for the recycling facilities to take our materials and to recycle them, they have to charge the municipalities and the businesses more for the processing of their materials. So it's costing more to kind of make up for that fall in the commodity pricing. So to put in perspective, the tipping fees here in Knoxville, all our materials go to a place called West Rock. They are right off Proctor Street off Middlebrook Pike. And they're pretty much the only game in this region. We recently had to go out for bid and for a new contract, and they were the only ones to bid. And we're extremely lucky to have them here in Knoxville. So we only pay for our curbside single stream recycling and then the glass at our drop-off centers to be recycled. The other materials that are at our drop-off centers that are already separated, we technically get paid for those, but I will say that we don't receive any checks for those because the amount of, or the cost for recycling glass in the single stream is so much that it just takes away any profit we make. Of course, we're not paying as much, but we're not making lots of money off recycling. Before the new contract, we were paying $10 per ton. We're now paying $24 per ton with the new contract, and there's an up to 6% increase in that cost through the next several years of our contract. So we went from paying about $50,000 a year to now $120 per year. But again, to put that into perspective, the national average for the tipping fees for recycling is almost $67. We are very lucky to only have to pay $24 per ton. Memphis pays $100 per ton. So it really affects those smaller communities to have these higher tipping fees as the commodity prices drop. And then in perspective, landfilling, what it costs us to landfill, it is cheaper for us to landfill our materials than it is to recycle. But of course, recycling is good and we want to do it. So, and it's not a huge difference in the price. So we continue to recycle. Meadowbridge landfill, like I said, it's owned by Waste Connections. It's in Athens, Tennessee. We pay $19.93 per ton. One thing I wanted to point out about this landfill is they capture the greenhouse gases and they scrub them, so they clean them up, and then they pump them back into the gas pipeline. So they are trying to mitigate the amount of greenhouse gas that's going into our atmosphere. Poplar View landfill, it is where the construction and demolition waste goes. It's $22.37 per ton. The national average is $53.72 per ton. So again, these small communities, when it's a lot cheaper for them to landfill their waste than to recycle, it's really impacting them. And curbside recycling. So a little over 50% of our households have a curbside recycling bin. We, however, don't know how often they set it out. So some people might be setting it out every other week when it's collected. Some people might set it out every now and then. Some people might be using it as a second trash cart. So while we show that over 50% of our households have been given a cart, we don't know how often they're using them. We get about 1,700 new recyclers each year. And then something that I think is pretty awesome is that in 2017, when we issued all the trash carts to residences, and we had to limit the amount of trash that was being set out. You could only put the amount of trash that fits in the city cart could be collected each week. It got people taking a look at their waste and seeing how much of that material could be recycled to be able to save space in their trash cart. So in just 2017 alone, 4,400 people signed up to recycle. So by getting these trash carts, it helped a lot of things, but that is one thing, is it increased the participation in our recycling program. This is a map showing you where our 5 recycling centers are. So the blue icons are the 5 centers, and these are city centers. So the county also has centers, and UT has a center, but these are the city centers. The green represents West Rock, where all those materials go to. And these are also the 5 centers that you can recycle glass at, the only centers where you can do that. So all those materials go to West Rock. These are 2 pictures actually from West Rock. The one on the left is the very beginning of the process for recycling. So it's right when the materials get dumped out onto the conveyor belt. As a reminder, there are people who are handling this. So they're really they're throughout the line trying to get off those plastic bags, get out the things that are not recyclable and damage the equipment. So, you know, when you're thinking about putting something in a recycling cart, please remember there are people who have to sort through this material. The image on the right is the finished product of the recyclables after they've been separated. They're put into bales, and then this is how they are transported to the buyers. Our recycling stream in 2020. So we recycled 7,458 tons. Of that tonnage, 63% of it came from our curbside carts. And we had about 37% that came from the drop-off centers, which I think is really awesome, because that's a large number for those truly dedicated recyclers that travel and put their bring their waste to our centers. This is our total waste stream, including landfilling and yard waste collection. So almost 85,000 tons were disposed of in 2020, 54% of that being landfilled, 9% of that being recycled, and then 37% of that was yard waste collection. So that is the yard waste that is collected by city crews is repurposed into mulch. So it's avoiding the landfill as well. So when you look at the national average, 25% is what people recycle throughout the country. We're recycling 9% of our waste. There is so much improvement that can be done there. Alternatively, the national average for leaf and brush collection and repurposing is only 10%. We're doing amazing at 37%. I will say that the leaves and the brush are so important to keep out of the landfill. They create methane gas, which is a very big contributor to climate change. So It's pretty great the amount of our yard waste that we're keeping out of the landfill. So if you live in the city limits and you bag your yard waste and you put it in your trash cart, that is going to a landfill. If you put it out at the edge of your yard and follow the guidelines that the city has for yard waste collection, it's being repurposed into mulch. So like I said, we never sent our materials to China. This is where our recyclables go in Knoxville. Our steel goes to Gerdau Ameristeel here in Knoxville. Aluminum goes to Arconic in Alcoa. Our plastic containers go to Mohawk Flooring in Georgia. They are technically downcycled into carpet, meaning that once they're made into carpet and then that carpet reaches the end of its life, it is landfill. So it's only, it's made into something that can't be recycled again. And then glass goes the furthest away to Strategic Materials in Atlanta. And then WestRock itself is a paper company. So it takes all of our fibers, all our cardboard, all our mixed paper, and they make boxes and shelving and things like that from our paper and cardboard here in Knoxville. So hopefully if you are attending this presentation, you have a good grasp of what you can and can't recycle here in Knoxville. These are our advanced do's and don'ts. So under the yes, this is a good example of how the market changes and fluctuates for recyclables based on kind of how, things are going. For pizza boxes recently, before you might've been hearing, you can't recycle pizza boxes if they're greasy, take off the lid, recycle that, put the greasy bottom in the trash. Well, with COVID and all the increase in online purchasing and needing cardboard boxes to ship everything, the price for cardboard went up and it's worth a lot more. So now WestRock is like, yes, give us your pizza boxes, even if they're greasy. You don't want food on them or anything, but you can recycle your pizza boxes. And that's just why it's so important to kind of keep up with local guidelines for recycling, because it's based on the market and the market changes every so often. Plastic and metal lids are recyclable. For the plastic lids on plastic containers, you do want to keep those on the container. Typically they were made out of kind of like different types of plastic that the technology couldn't separate. So a lot of people would say keep the lid off, but now they try to make the plastic lid and the plastic bottle the same type of plastic so they can recycle it. So if you take the lid off and don't return it to the bottle, then it's so small it won't be caught in the system. So putting the lid on the plastic bottle allows that lid to also be recycled. And yes, you can recycle glass in Knoxville. You can only recycle glass at the 5 city recycling drop-off centers. We can take it from everybody. I will say that if you are not in Knox County and you're coming from outside of the county and you want to recycle glass with us, we're happy to take your glass. We just ask that you also bring your other recyclables like your cardboard and whatnot, so that you can kind of, so we're not paying to recycle glass from another county. So, but yes, bring us your glass and we will recycle it. The big no-nos, I wish that everyone in the world could understand this, but plastic bags and plastic film are not recyclable. So, but any like stretchy plastic is not recyclable in Knoxville, or really anywhere throughout the country in a curbside or drop-off program. It stretches out over the gears, and in the photo to the right, you'll see that what it does, it stretches out over the gears, it breaks down the equipment. It takes a lot of energy and time for the workers to stop their process and cut through those materials to be able to start the process back again. They are not recyclable. Oftentimes I get asked if they're recyclable when you bring them back to a grocery store or like Walmart or Lowe's or Target or any of those places that have the bins outside. I think every place is different. So, I've heard things like they don't get recycled, they do get recycled. So I play it safe and I just avoid plastic bags at all costs. I personally would not trust that they do get recycled. But I mean, you can ask the facilities and see what they do with them. But I would just try avoiding plastic bags. They are not recyclable here in Knoxville. Snack bags and the candy wrappers with the silver lining, the Mylar is what that material is called. That is trash. Aluminum foil and pie pans are not recyclable here in Knoxville. Coffee cups are not recyclable. So many people think that because they're paper that they are recyclable, but all paper coffee cups are actually lined with a plastic material that the technology cannot separate to be able to recycle the paper cup. So, and they're lined like that because they have to be able to hold the heat. So if it's just paper, it would just go right through it. So coffee cups are trash. That's why you should bring your own to all the coffee stores. And then cartons, we can't recycle cartons here. So juice and soup and ice cream cartons, those unfortunately are trash. We cannot recycle styrofoam here. You can recycle styrofoam meat and produce trays and styrofoam egg cartons at Publix. No styrofoam cups or styrofoam peanuts and packaging, just the meat and produce trays and the egg cartons can be recycled at Publix. And then paper towels and napkins are not recyclable. And then what we call tinglers, hoses, string lights, things like that are not recyclable. Again, the image will show you what happens when you put those in the bin. And those truly damage the equipment used to process recycling. Another kind of issue we're having throughout the nation is a term we call wish cycling. So this is something, you have something, you're not sure if it's recyclable, you feel bad about putting it in the trash, so you just put it in the recycling bin and you hope it gets recycled. It's wish cycling. It is not good for the system. We put this when in doubt, throw it out. I like to say when in doubt, just call or email me and I will tell you if it's recyclable or not, because maybe it is recyclable, but you need to, look at your local guidelines and ask somebody before putting it in the bin. So as I mentioned, West Rock is the only game in town. If they are getting a bunch of trash in their recycling and they have to landfill it and they have to pay to landfill that material, they have to make a profit to stay in business. So by wish cycling and by contaminating and adding trash into our recycling, we're really hurting their business, which maybe you wouldn't care otherwise, but they're the only recycling bin. So we need them to survive so we can continue recycling here in Knoxville. Some things to remember. I know plastic recycling can be pretty difficult to kind of understand what you can and can't recycle. What helps me to remember is that the beverage industry is who started recycling, the act of recycling. So back in the 70s when Earth Day became a thing and recycling started up, the technology for these recycling facilities was meant for these bottles and these plastic containers, these rigid, not soft plastic containers to be recycled. And today it is still meant for only plastic containers to be recycled. So no miscellaneous plastics, no plastics that, that have other materials on them, like paper and whatnot, just plastic bottles that are labeled as such, which recycling symbols don't mean it's recyclable. I say this like, I feel like a lot of companies, they'll put the triangle on their item and it causes a lot of confusion, but they mean different things. Sometimes you'll see a recycling triangle that's just on there because maybe part of that product was made out of recycled content. You might see it on there, a recycling triangle, and then it has a little note that says check locally or where facilities exist. So if it does not have a recycling triangle that has a number 1 through 7 in it, and this is for plastic bottles and containers, it is not recyclable. So just make sure you're really paying attention to the recycling triangle and making sure that it actually has that number 1 through 7 in it. Post-consumer materials are only recycled if they're cheaper than virgin materials. So the virgin materials are those materials that they're getting from the ground or they're getting from, cutting down trees and stuff like that. So if virgin continues to be cheaper than recycled content, then there's no need in people trying to put their recycling, make stuff out of recycled content. So that's why it's so important to kind of vote with your dollar and buy things that are made out of recycled content. It's a market-driven thing. It's supply and demand. If we demand that we want things made out of recycled content, then the supply of recycled materials is going to grow and grow. So it's really important to buy recycled content if you want recycling to thrive. And then, of course, we're all about reducing the waste in the first place, finding alternatives to things that end up in the landfill, substitutes to those materials. That comes first. And then we just added a new tool to our website that anyone in Knox County can use. That's the short URL to it. You can put in an item, and then the database will tell you where it can be recycled or donated locally. It's a really good resource. And if you put something in, just to kind of give you some information on the background of that stuff, if you put an item in and it doesn't show up, we get alerted that there's not a stream for it. And so we'll add content to be like yes or no with recycling and where you can dispose of that material. So it's a very useful tool. And this is probably a big topic that you guys are interested in. Number 3 through 7, plastics. Currently, they are not being recycled here in Knoxville. The reason for that is because no one is buying them. Another market-driven thing. Previously, there was a market for 3 through 7s, and we, West Rock was able to find someone who could make something out of them. But over the years, it has basically dwindled to nothing. So while 1s and 2s are so very readily recyclable, 3 through 7s are becoming a problem across the nation, not just here locally. But 3 through 7s only make up less than 2% of the recyclables that we get. It is not a big number. And if you remember, that you're only supposed to be recycling plastic bottles and plastic containers, you're mostly going to see those 1s and 2s anyway. You will see number 5s. Number 5s are a good plastic. They are typically food grade plastics. So a lot of yogurt containers and things like that food comes in will typically be a number 5. Right now, we are looking into grant opportunities to be able to update technology to be able to take those number 5s. West Rock would have to be the one to take on that grant and implement the technology for it, but we're trying to partner with them and really help them to find an outlet for those number 5s. Another option is Eastman Chemical is in Kingsport, Tennessee, and they are working on a process called chemical recycling, where they're taking, they actually would take the 1 through 7s, except the number 3s, take them in, and they will chemically recycle them, meaning they bring them back to their molecular level. A lot of science stuff that's above my head, but bring it back to its molecular level and then make it into something like its original form so that it can be infinitely recycled. So right now, a recycled bottle can only be recycled so many times because the plastic just degrades after so many times. So by chemical recycling, we would be given the opportunity to infinitely recycle those items. So that's something we're looking into that is in the near future, and they might be our buyer for our 4 through 7s. And maybe our 1s and 2s as well, if we're wanting to change that up as well. So the reason we're not communicating that you have to remove the 3 through 7s, there's many reasons. It's really hard to educate the public. Yes on something, no on something, yes on something, and it constantly changes. They kind of lose faith in the system. So while we're not currently recycling the 3 through 7s, they're not harming the system. So we don't want people to necessarily get out of the habit of not putting their 3 through 7s in the bin, because the West Rock's technology can easily sort those out. So they're not harming the system like the plastic bags are and the food is and the glasses. So it's okay to still put those in your bin. Just know that you'll need to check back periodically to see if they're being recycled or not. Our website has some information on it. We're constantly updating our website. It's always up to date. So please do, if you're ever curious about something, check out our website or contact me, and I'm happy to tell you the updates on it. And then just a little bit on glass, why it was removed, At some point in glass was removed from the curbside bins, the single stream where you mix it in with all the other materials, because at some point in the process, whether it's when you put it in your cart or it gets dumped in the truck or the truck dumps it on the floor at West Rock, it's going to break in these tiny little pieces. Those tiny little pieces mix in with the paper and the plastic, and there's just no way to remove them. So it creates these tiny little shards of glass and everything. And then the picture on here is the end product you get when glass is in your single stream bin. So nobody wants to buy that. Nobody can do anything with that. So we had to remove it from our single stream bins and only accept it at our drop-off centers so that people could, so that our other materials in our recycling cart could be readily recycled. The glass will be recycled at the drop-off centers, and the rest of the materials in your bin will be recycled and not contaminated by that glass. So it was really important for us to do that to make sure it all got recycled. And then I know that there's a lot of, everyone wants to recycle glass, and, it seems like such a good material, and you want to be able to recycle it. Just a little bit of information on glass and why, if there was ever a material that we removed from our recycling stream, glass is honestly the best to remove, because it's inert, meaning that if it's not properly disposed of and it's littered on the ground, or if it ends up in the landfill or in the ocean, it doesn't have these chemicals that are breaking down and leaking into our groundwater and our atmosphere. It returns to its original self of just sand. So that's one point. Also, the other materials that we're putting in our recycling, when we recycle them, you're actually using so much less energy to recycle something than if you were getting that virgin material. So for instance, aluminum, instead of blowing off the tops of mountains and trying to extract that material, when you recycle it, you save 90 to 97% on your energy. Paper is also a really good one. Instead of cutting down trees and trying to get that paper from trees, when you recycle your paper, there's 44% energy savings there. Whereas glass, there's less than 30% of energy savings because it's just sand that you heat up and mold. So there's, limited energy savings there. I will also say that glass is the heaviest. So when you're using these big trucks and you're traveling to whatever facility they're going to be recycled, if you transport more than 800 miles to recycle that glass, there's no greenhouse gas advantage. Currently, we're transporting 430 miles away. So we wouldn't want to go any further than that, because then it just takes away the whole point of recycling, basically. Some benefits of the recycling from City in 2019. We saved 7,290 tons of trash from going to the landfill. We avoided almost 16,000 metric tons of CO2 from going into the atmosphere. And we saved almost 38 million gallons of water by recycling the amount we did in 2019. We haven't been able to calculate that for 2020 yet. And then this slide, I like to kind of end presentations with this, just to remind people that recycling is awesome. You want to do it. It's easy to do. It doesn't take much effort. It's readily available to do. But also, in addition to recycling, you kind of want to consider other things that could also make such a huge impact on reducing your carbon footprint and ultimately climate change. So it might be a little hard to see, but down here is recycling. Has a moderate impact. It's still good to recycle. Obviously, we don't want to cut down our trees. We want to save space in our landfills, things like that. But then you get over here and it's eating a plant-based diet. If even you eat one meal a week that doesn't include meat, that is a huge benefit to our environment. Using, traveling by bike or carpooling, or public transportation is a huge benefit to mitigating climate change. And then the one that kind of goes off the charts is having one less child a year, which just has amazing impacts, but of course that is harder to do sometimes. So, and then one less flight a year is also huge benefit to mitigating climate change. And then before I leave, I just want to say that if you or a family or a friend member has recently graduated from college and you're wanting to work in our office, we are seeking, we just filled one of the 2 AmeriCorps positions. So we're seeking 1 AmeriCorps position. They're looking for opportunities in local government, low waste education, marketing. We do blog posts, we do social media content, we do community outreach. We would love to have you come work in our office. You can reach out to me or just to CAC AmeriCorps directly. And yeah, I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Makenzie, for such a wonderful and informative presentation. If you all have any questions, you can just enter them into the chat and I'll read them out for Makenzie to answer. We actually had one of our first questions come in beforehand from Erica. She was very prepared with a question to talk about communication regarding recycling. So how can we more effectively get the word out to the community about what is/is not recyclable? And kind of clarified in the chat that particularly plastic bags she sees as an issue. So
yes, that is a very good question. There's a couple ways, I guess. Like I mentioned, we're an office of 2 people, so and we cover a lot of services. So it really takes a village to kind of get this information out and educate people on how important it is to recycle correctly. In relation to the drop-off centers, I will say that we're currently revamping all of our drop-off centers. You may have already noticed, but we have fixed them and freshly painted the majority of them. We still have some that need to be done, but we put fresh new stickers on them. Hopefully it's a lot more clear than the old stickers that didn't have much detail. We also have added message boards to those drop-off centers that go into detail about more recycling information, why plastic bags are bad, why we have to recycle our glass at the drop-off center, where our recyclables go, and kind of the process for it. So I would also say that reaching out to your city council members, letting them know that you care about the state of our recycling, care that these messages get across to the public. They're the ones who decide on the funding. They're the ones who might be able to impact our office by adding another employee. So I think if you are really passionate about this, that reaching out to them and letting them know that you'd like to see more education around that goes a long way. And then being, a champion of recycling yourself. So, if you see someone at the drop-off centers putting in plastic bags or, just anyone incorrectly recycling at all, saying something, utilizing your social media platforms and whatnot to kind of remind people, hey, you can't recycle plastic bags, and point them to our website and stuff. I think that would go a long way. I'm extremely passionate about this work. So, and so is my supervisor. So we care and we want to communicate with everybody. It's just very hard to reach everyone. So I wish I had a better answer, but starting there, I think would go a far way.
And the next question, Sandra was just wondering if you're able to send everyone the slideshow and presentation materials.
Yeah. I guess I'll get that to you and y'all can send it along.
Yes. Yeah, we should have everybody's email. Then we have Melina. I arrived a bit late and just wanted to get some clarification. Are we selling the potential recyclable material or are they charging us to take it?
So we pay for the single stream or mixed recycling in the curbside bins. and we pay for our glass to be recycled. So that's that $24 a ton that we're paying for that material to be recycled. But we are not charged for the other materials at our drop-off centers that are separated. So not charged for paper and cardboard or the aluminum cans and the plastic.
And Margaret, are there any plans to have a fee for each can and soda bottle where you can recycle them at the grocery store? It's done in other states, such as Massachusetts, where I moved from.
Yeah. So that would have to come from the state level. And to be honest, I don't think our state cares much about recycling. For instance, they just put, they just passed a law where they banned a plastic bag ban. So before there was any even talk about banning plastic bags like other cities are doing, New York City, San Francisco, places like that, they banned the ability to make a ban. So I would say that there's a lot of interested people in that down on like the local level, but coming from our state, they would be the ones who would need to push something like that. I know it's brought up a lot, but again, they're the ones making the decision, unfortunately.
And Kate was wondering, with the farmers market coming back to Market Square, will there be an option for a recycling booth to collect the more difficult items like glass or even compost materials?
That's a great idea. I can see about doing something like that. Our office, unfortunately, will not have the manpower for that, but I will definitely see if we can maybe get some partners and maybe make something happen with the people who put on the farmers market. I will say that we are doing kind of back of the house composting at the farmers market. We've been kind of trying out this time with the farmers market where it's been at Mary Costa Plaza. So it won't be where you can bring your food scraps, but there will be, just know that it's there for like the coffee shops and the different food trucks and everything to kind of have back of house composting, which is, I just want to point that out because I think that's a great step in the right direction. But yeah, I will make a note to see if there's anything that we can do about those difficult items to recycle.
That's really cool. I didn't know about the back of house composting. Yeah. That's awesome. And then Anne was wondering what would be at the advantage or disadvantage of trying to set up a regional material recycling / remanufacturing operation like glass near Knoxville. Like
what near Knoxville?
Like glass near Knoxville.
So for glass, it's just one of those things, like I mentioned, that isn't really worth much. I think that, yeah, anybody can set up shop and create a kind of outlet to recycle that glass would be beneficial. So we're not traveling as far to recycle that glass, but yeah, so I think there is a benefit. I don't know kind of the odds and ends of that, but anywhere that we can transport our glass to recycle closer is going to be a benefit to the whole community, as well as our climate, because you won't be traveling as far. So yeah.
Oh, and and then Anne was also wondering about potentially volunteers at the farmers market to talk about the issue.
I think that's awesome. I think you would need to speak to Nourish Knoxville, who puts on the farmers market. You could, if they're, I think they allow people to set up to do informational booths. So just kind of reach out to them. And then if you need materials or any kind of help, we're happy. We have materials that we're happy to let you use.
Okay, great. I think that was a super amazing talk, and we're so grateful to have you, Makenzie. That was the final question. Thank you everybody for attending, and we really appreciate y'all turning out.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me anytime. No question is stupid, I promise. I'm happy to answer any recycling questions. Thank y'all.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
All right.